Hi guys, I'm Danika Brysha and I'm here today with my functional nutritionist, Jackie Mulligan, and we are so excited to do this video for you. Now, you guys asked a ton of questions. We wanted to get them answered for you. Jackie and I have found ourselves so many times in these really interesting conversations, and she answers all my crazy things that come up, and a lot of them I think are really beneficial. So we wanted to take the time to share them with you too. So in this call, we're going to do a couple things. First, we're going to answer the questions you guys asked. So if you didn't get a chance to ask those questions on Instagram, no problem, because I'm sure a lot of the stuff will still pertain to you. So we're going to be answering questions like, do I need to eat breakfast? How do I get back on the bandwagon if I've fallen off with healthy eating? How do I balance my hormones? How do I manage stress? What do you feel about intermittent fasting? Do I need to eat breakfast every morning? All stuff like that. So we'll be answering those. And then at the very end of the call, we'll be giving you each of our top 3 wellness additions that we incorporated into our lifestyles in 2017 that have made the biggest impact. So before we do that, I wanted to give you guys a quick introduction as to who we are, and I'm gonna let Jackie start.
Hey guys, yeah, so I'm Jackie Mulligan and I'm a functional nutritionist, and I'm gonna start there with the basic introduction of what that means. And so functional nutrition is the foundational way that food affects our bodies. And so it's using food as medicine to heal our bodies. And like, Danica, in our work together, it is that, but it's so much more than that. So food is just one aspect of our health. And so in my work, I look at stress, I look at how we sleep, how we move our bodies, our personal growth, and just really make sure that we're looking at you as a whole person and not just looking at a set of symptoms, but really looking at your entire lifestyle and really how you live and healing you as a whole. And I think it's really important that we don't just focus on one thing, but we're looking at everything. And so it's not that we're just looking at the way that you eat or just focusing on stress, because you really can't have one part without the other. And so it's really so great because I get to learn my clients or group of people on such a larger scale, because I'm really looking at like the bird's eye view of their life and getting to kind of peek into the areas where sometimes we're so far in it that we can't see where we need help or what we need to change. Yeah, exactly. And so I do some one-on-one consulting with private clients. I also do corporate wellness, where I'll go into companies and educate large groups on wellness and various topics. And then I also, this is most recent and near and dear to my heart, is going into schools where I'll do assemblies or working with small groups of students. Being a former teacher, that's just, it's something that I'm really passionate about, and my heart definitely belongs in the classroom. And so, and just educating about wellness in general.
That is awesome. And I think what Jackie said in terms of functional nutrition, when we started our work together, I thought she was going to talk about food, and it was functional nutrition was food. And it was so much more than that. We like hardly ever talked about food really. And we actually focused so much more on all these different lifestyle things. So I've learned a lot from her. In terms of an intro for me, I work actually as a model for IMG Models, and I'm also the founder and CEO of a healthy meal delivery business called Model Meals. And then I also work sort of as a self-care wellness personality through Instagram, and that's really my passion, is kind of being the science experiment, being the person that is trying out these new things and really fighting for my wellness. I fought with food in my body for my whole life, and really kind of changing to this sort of internal positive view of myself and working from the inside out has been really life-changing. And without Jackie's work, I couldn't be where I am today. So I'm really excited. And
Yeah.
let's get into our questions.
Yeah, that's great. Let's do it.
So our first question was, how do I get back on the wagon when I've fallen off from healthy eating? Which is something I think everyone can relate to. And I can speak to that first, to be honest, because really the last couple months I've been off the wagon. And I really pride myself on having some balance and that sort of thing. But I went to Europe with my boyfriend and came back and kind of just was like, oh, well, it's Thanksgiving now. And oh, well, it's Christmas now. And so really a couple days ago, I had to really force myself to get back on my wagon. And for me, I found, I wasn't feeling great. And so for me, I found that by just waking up and making it a priority to wake up a little bit earlier and to schedule a workout, that gets me going. So for me, if I can get my butt to work out in the morning, that typically will determine the way that my day goes, because working out is just something that does not come easy to me. It takes a lot of effort.
No.
Do that.
Okay, but the awareness is at least there about that.
The awareness is there, and so I can do that, and then I typically choose better foods for me, and that sort of starts that cycle. So for me, it's just getting one good day, and I utilize my self-care checklist to get that one good day, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to have a couple of themes on this call, and yours is definitely going to be your self-care checklist, which I think a lot of people know about and really want more information about. And I think my theme is going to be introducing what I call our health bank account. And I refer to it all the time with you, but I think it's really empowering for people to tune into. And it's one thing that even with just this question alone, we can really use it really well. So just as a little introduction, if we looked at our health as an overall health or bank account, like as you would for your normal bank account, and we can kind of tune into where we are, it really helps us to step back and make decisions based on what we need right then in that moment. And so it's really empowering to kind of step back and tune in. And so it's just, imagine you got back from vacation, right? And you're kind of like, oh, wow, I did a lot of spending, made a lot of withdrawals. And so I'm going to get back, I'm going to do some saving, make some deposits, and stop spending for a little while. That's exactly the same approach I feel that we need to take for health. So for example, when you've kind of fallen off the wagon, you need to get back, I think it's really helpful to step back and say, really, where are you? You know, how deficient are you? So where's your sleep? What have your food choices been like? How's your digestion and your gut health? How's your stress level? Have you moved your body at all? And what are your relationships like? How's your mood? All those kinds of things, and really kind of tuning into where they are, and then identifying how to make deposits. So, you know, Danika, you and I have talked about, like, sometimes healthy movement or exercise can absolutely be a deposit. It also can be a withdrawal. So if stress is really, really high and you're making not so great food choices, moving your body in a really intense way is sometimes not what you need. And so we'll kind of get into that a little bit more depth later, but I think it's really stepping back and looking at your health like as you would your bank account, and deciding where you need to make deposits and what they need to be and what they are in your life right now. And that kind of helps you get back on the wagon, so to speak, to say, just as you would at the end of a vacation, of like, these are the deposits I'm going to make so that I can go on vacation and enjoy these things again.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love that. And that example was always so helpful to me in our work together. So, and I think it brings us into the next question, which is the top 5 things I should implement in my morning routine. So that was a question we got. And we'll just speak in general to our morning routine. My morning routine is a game changer. I swear by it. It is the reason that I have the success I have today. A year ago, I was living in my parents' garage. I was nearly 6 figures in debt, struggling with my body and food and all that sort of stuff. And it has been a drastic transformation. And I attribute that to my morning routine and that work that I do consistently in terms of self-care. So, and Jackie, of course, mainly to Jackie. But really it's that. And so for me, I have a checklist that I created in an app called Evernote. It's free. And my checklist started as something super small, and it just kind of accumulated over the years since I've been doing it, probably for about 3 or 4 years now. And it's really a format for me to what creates a good day for me. So I know that meditation, when I meditate, when I sleep well, when I eat clean, when I practice gratitude, all those sorts of things are going to create a good day for me. And creating a good life feels really overwhelming to me. So this tool was a way to create a great day, which was ultimately a lot of great days would create a great life. So that felt a lot less overwhelming. So in the morning, I wake up, before I touch my phone, because that can be such a sucker. And also, I don't sleep with my phone in my bedroom, because I know you just turn off the alarm and scroll Instagram and whatever.
Go right to it, yeah.
So my phone is not in my bedroom. And then before I check my phone, I have a little routine. I make my morning drink. I actually eat breakfast really early. So I wake up at 5 now, and I'm eating breakfast by 5:30 because my friend Jackie Mulligan here told me I had to eat breakfast within an hour. So that's actually been really powerful for me since I started practicing it. So I eat breakfast, and then I sit down and I prepare my self-care checklist. So I'm doing things like writing what I'm grateful for, writing affirmations. I'm writing a biography of myself from the future, and then a journal entry of myself from the future. I'm really big into manifesting. I really schedule my calendar to make sure that my wellness is in there, that my breaks are in there. And then after I do this self-care checklist, like, that is my priority. If you notice, the first thing I do in the morning is I give that time to myself, which I think is super important. And then eventually I will work out, usually around 7. So I give myself kind of 2 hours to adjust into the day, do this self-care, meditate, and then I go work out, and then when I come home, I kind of work. But when I work, I do work.
She works a little bit.
And I work, something Jackie taught me was working in work blocks. So I'll work for 90 minutes
Yeah.
on, and I'll work for 15 or 30 minutes off, depending what feels right. So anyway, that morning routine kind of trickles into later, but that first chunk of time in the morning is so important. So other things could be journaling, stream of consciousness. I'm trying to think of some other things that I do. I check off that I have a clean space. I check off that I'm doing no caffeine this month. So I check off that monthly challenge. So all sorts of things like that.
Yeah. And I think, my morning routine is really similar. And I think what you said is like giving to yourself first is really important, because you can't pour from an empty cup. And so if you start the day, kind of on the withdrawal side of your bank account, but just kind of like spilling out all, for everybody else, it's kind of like you're waiting for the end of the day to catch up with yourself. And I think it's a lot of the reason that in the evening, people have such a hard time unplugging, because finally they're finished with their work, they're finished, with their families or any obligations, and then they sit down 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and that's their time. And so it's usually time spent on their phone, or really, I think what they're craving is some sort of a connection, and we don't really know how to get that connection this day and age without, technology being in our hands. And so I think that one thing I've noticed or know is that when I have my morning routine and I really have this time in solitude and silence, which I'll talk about what I do, it allows me to have a greater sense of what I need during the day and what's most important. And so I think that what sometimes I see a lot of in my clinical practice is that people get overwhelmed because they have so much they want to do, but they're tired. And so they just kind of like tune out, they shut down. And so I've seen this correlation with my clients of creating this morning routine and then creating an evening routine to really start and end the day, filling our cup. And it's really, really important. I've seen it change so many people's lives. And I really think it's a huge takeaway. And I see a lot of resistance when I first work with somebody and I say, your homework is building a morning routine. And they're like, I thought you were a nutritionist. And it's like, yes, I promise you that we are going to get into that. But we need to work with stress and sleep and just getting into the habit of eating breakfast. And so something that I do, or what I do in my morning, and I should just mention that this year has been really interesting for me because I've lived all over the place, and I haven't had one steady location for almost 12 months. And so there was a lot of uncertainty and a lot of unsettledness, but a lot of excitement around that. And so it was hard in the beginning, to cultivate consistency. And so it was almost like I was forced to create my own consistency so that no matter where I was, my mornings looked the same. And so I'm a grandma in that I love morning tea and quiet time. So the first thing I do is rehydrate myself. And so I drink a big cup of herbal tea, or sometimes just hot water with lemon for a detox. And then I have silence and prayer. So whether that's actually just praying at wherever I am, whatever, home looks like for that period of time, or I'll go to mass. And so for me, it's really important to have that time of centering, of connecting with God, of just being quiet and really hearing, tuning into what is my purpose for that day. Like you said, I really like that, Danika, what it is for the day that kind of trickles into the week, that trickles into, a longer timeline. It doesn't feel so overwhelming. But I really feel that when I do have that centered and grounding time, I'm so much better for everybody in my life. And just to kind of bounce off of another theme you have is I don't touch my phone in that time. And I can definitely tell the difference in the mornings for when I do touch my phone before that and when I don't, because I let the world in, and then I'm not all there. I'm not 100% present with where I need to be. And I'll have mornings where I feel this resistance of this, like, I need to be working sooner. I need to be doing things. Like, it's kind of like this sense of urgency. And I think the more consistent I am, the less that feels so urgent. So I don't know if you noticed, but weeks where maybe I don't have that same morning routine, it's kind of easy to kind of slip into just getting right to work. And so it's really hard to hit the pause button and restart. I felt that a little bit, through the holidays. And so after my silence, it depends. Sometimes I'll go for a walk, or do some sort of movement, and then I'll always have breakfast. And I really do not start work until that happens. The only deviation is that I do have clients abroad in Europe, and so sometimes their evenings is my early morning, and so time zones get in the way. But for the most part, that's the consistent start, and it just is such a game changer. It really is.
Absolutely. And totally. I think I'm so glad you touched on the emails thing too, because for me, it was so easy for me to get up and just start wanting to answer emails. So I can't even look at them now. I don't want to know what's going on until 9 a.m. And I just give myself a regular work day. So yeah. Granted, think about the fact that I wake up at 5 a.m. and I don't start work till 9. That means I'm giving myself 4 hours every morning of self-care.
It's huge.
And it's amazing, because the truth is, at nighttime, I don't get anything really productive done. So why would I save those hours for myself when they're sort of the hours that I'm kind of tuned out, you know? So
yeah, and I think also I was realizing, like, I'm not intending to answer these emails right now. So why am I looking at them? I'm just filling my mind with all of this noise and distracting myself with all this distraction. And so it's better to wait and to fill up our cup. So, I mean, I invite everybody to try it. It's game changing for sure.
Absolutely. I think getting up early and having some sort of morning routine, even if all you can pull off is 10 minutes, it still makes a big difference. So start small.
And I think we should just note that if there's resistance to that, it's probably because you need to do it. You know, usually what we resist the most is what we need to change the most. And you and I have talked about this a lot, where it's kind of like, you know, you don't grow when you're comfortable. You grow when you're uncomfortable. And so we have to do things that are uncomfortable. And so if getting up and not knowing what's happening at work is uncomfortable for you, maybe that's because you are not giving yourself the space to grow in other areas that you don't really want to look at, because they're really, really hard to face, of like maybe yourself, you know? And so it's definitely something to just get curious around if there's resistance around this quiet time in the morning.
Absolutely. And I think this conversation transitions into the next question perfectly, which was breakfast. Like, do I eat in the morning? Do I intermittent fast? And, you know, and I think you can kind of talk about intermittent fasting and breakfast in the same category. So I'm going to let you totally.
Yeah. Okay. And actually there's like 3 questions in a row that kind of align with each other. And I'm just looking at notes. I wrote a lot of responses for you guys. So if I'm peeking down in my notes, it's because I don't want to forget anything that that was asked of us. So yeah, okay. I was thinking about our how I was going to approach this question, because it's not as black and white as everybody would assume, right? But I feel like I'm saying this on repeat. Danika, you and I have talked about this a lot, but I feel like when people ask specific questions, it's almost like they already know the answer, but they just want somebody else to tell them, kind of thing. And so I feel like if you're questioning if you should eat breakfast, you kind of know that you already should. But I'm not going to be so black and white, because I think that we also need to find comfort in the gray. And one thing I'll kind of talk about as we get into some other questions is that everybody is different, and what you do right now is going to look very different than what might be best for your health in a month, in 6 months, in a year, in 2 years. So if I say to everybody, yes, everybody should be eating breakfast, that might not be true for everyone, and dependent on their health. I will say, for most people, it is very wise to eat breakfast within 60 to 90 minutes of waking up. And there is this trend and this theme of intermittent fasting that comes up. And then there's like the ketogenic diet, which I'll get into shortly. But fasting is a major stressor on the body. And I will often say to people who ask me, and it's typically women, I'll say, you know, what does your stress look like outside of this? Because this intermittent fasting is a major stressor on our body already. So what other stressors do we have? We have financial stress, we have work stress, we have emotional stress. You know, there's some psychological stress going on. There's maybe some metabolic stress going on with some digestive issues. So now we're just going to add another, you know, more fuel to the fire and stress our bodies out even more. And so I tend to say that if everything is going perfect and you don't have any other stressors going on, then we might want to consider intermittent fasting. So I have seen it work really, really well for people in very specific situations. But for the most part, on a general population level, especially for females, it wreaks havoc on female hormones. And when I say intermittent fasting, I think I should get a little bit more detailed just in what I mean by it. So it's usually when people fast for 16 to 18 or even longer hours between days at a time, which is a long time to be fasting and without food. And so I say, let's pull it back a little bit if it's something that you want to try. You mentioned earlier in your introduction, like you love being an experiment. I think that we should experiment with both things. Eat breakfast, try intermittent fasting, but try it in a context where it's not this black and white, and it's really a gray area for you to see if it works for you. But I will say, if there's any sort of stress going on, that it's probably not the best thing to do, and that you absolutely should be eating breakfast to support the demands of your body of that the high stress that's occurring. And so if anything, I think that the fasting that you can do is between dinner and breakfast, which is breaking the fast for breakfast, which can be anywhere from 12 to tops maximum 14 hours for women. And so I would say start there if you have curiosity about it, especially in winter months. I think that it's smart to kind of eat with the sun. And so it's okay to eat dinner a little bit earlier and have a little bit more of a fasting time frame. But I really think that women should just enter with caution when dealing with intermittent fasting, and primarily because of the hormonal imbalances that it causes. And so just a couple of things I wanted to mention. Okay, so affecting our menstrual cycles, that's probably the first thing that we'll see. But also affecting our leptin, which is our hormone that signals when we're hungry and when we're full. And so a lot of times people will say, well, I'm just not hungry for breakfast. And actually, Danika, I remember that you weren't hungry for breakfast. And I said, like, your leptin is just thrown off right now. We need to reset it. And that's going to require a high protein breakfast. And so it's not just that you're not hungry, it's that your hormones are imbalanced and we need to rebalance them. And so sometimes we can and should listen to our bodies, but sometimes our body signals aren't very accurate, and we have to kind of regroup before we're really able to trust what our bodies are signaling to us. And I've also seen with intermittent fasting that it almost exacerbates eating disorders. So if there's binging or anorexia or anything like that, I see that fasting is just this trigger to exacerbate it in one direction or the other. So I have a lot of, caution around it. And I think that we should also take into account that if you're only eating in a, let's say, 6 or 8 hour window, how nourishing or how many nutrients are you really getting in that time frame? Are you actually even eating enough calories? And what does that look like? What are your macronutrients like? So this is a loaded question. But my advice is, especially for women, to proceed with caution there. I think that it's actually a lot more beneficial for men. But since most of the questions were from women and also about hormone balancing and about breakfast, I think that the safest and best bet is starting your day off with a high protein breakfast, and that will also help with balancing hormones.
For someone who's working out early in the morning, like I am, what do you suggest eating for breakfast?
Yeah, so I think it depends on what kind of workout you're doing. If you're doing like a walk or something like yoga, I don't really think it's absolutely necessary, if you're doing it right first thing in the morning, that you need to eat before that. If you're doing something a little bit more high intensity, some sort of weight training or high intensity interval training, then I do think it's wise to have some sort of a protein or a fat prior to training. But I think going to yoga or doing something more on the lighter end, going fasted isn't really so much of a big deal. But regardless of what you're doing training wise, at least within 30 to 60 minutes of getting back, and honestly closer to 30 is better. I think you should be having a full breakfast upon coming back from that. But for example, like you're waking up at 5, if you're not training until 8 or 9, you should definitely eat breakfast beforehand. Yeah.
I typically am eating now at 5:30 in the morning. So my meals are like lunches at like 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. And then dinner is like, it's my dinner time right now. It's 4:15. It's past my dinner.
Yeah.
But
and like that's what I mentioned earlier, just in the winter, that's just kind of what tends to happen. Whereas summer, it's lighter, our days are longer, the sun's out longer, and it's kind of, we just end up eating a little bit more carbohydrates and longer into night. It's not uncommon to have dinner at 8 or 9 o'clock in the summer. That's just kind of what happens. And so I really do advocate for eating seasonally, eating what's in season, and also kind of having this hibernation, high protein, high fat in the winter, and just being able to change with the seasons and not just kind of have this rigid, this is how I eat all year long. I think our bodies were designed to eat with not only how we are feeling and our stress levels, but also to support where we're living.
Absolutely. And then, so in that conversation, you touched a little bit on hormone balancing. And I know that was a question someone was asking, if we can kind of talk about techniques to help with hormone balancing.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that we can do. And the first thing is definitely eating breakfast. So if you're worried about balancing your hormones, starting with breakfast is really, really important. And then just eating enough to support the demands of our bodies. And so when I see women who are kind of like plateaued or can't lose weight, have like stubborn fat in their lower bellies, inner outer thighs, and I see them very regimented about what they're eating, the first thing I do is say, let's take off the stress about what you're eating, because we need to make sure that you're eating good fuel, but just that you're eating enough. If you feel good, I don't care how much protein you ate, as far as like, did you reach X amount? It's more of, do you feel good? Do you feel satiated? Is this meal lasting you a couple of hours, or are you, bouncing up and down on this roller coaster of blood sugar and needing to eat every 2 or 3 hours? And so balancing blood sugar, eating breakfast. And I think one thing, Danika, that a lot of women in this day and age don't do is feed their parasympathetic nervous system. So we have our sympathetic, which is like our fight or flight, and then our parasympathetic, which is more of like our rest and digest. And so if I was kind of to compare the two, the sympathetic is more of like our masculine energy, kind of like the go, go, go. And the parasympathetic is more of our feminine energy, and more of our softer side. And so I think it's really important to channel the parasympathetic, the rest and digest. And the best thing you can do there is manage your stress and slow down. And so that means really, really looking at what's on your plate. Do you have downtime? Do you have a rest day? Are you rushing from activity to activity to activity? What is your training looking like? Are you just doing spin and high intensity things? Do you do any yoga? Does the thought of yoga stress you out and give you crazy anxiety? This was something you and I talked about too. I made you take a full day off of work and training. That was seemingly impossible for you, and you did it. It was, coming off of high intensity training and going on walks and yoga. And it's humbling, because we're kind of on this adrenaline and this high energy kick. And all of a sudden when we come down, I think our body is kind of like, oh, this is what it's supposed to feel like. And it kind of, eases up a little bit. And I think that, I don't think enough women channel that. I think that more women are working, and this modern world is just, it's just, our culture is crazy. It's just one thing, and there's just so much noise. And in one sense, it's really exciting and it's really amazing. And the other sense, it's not natural. And so it's really hard, especially for us, to be able to balance both worlds. And so, so I would say learning how to feed that parasympathetic nervous system, that rest and digest, and that could be things like baths and yoga and laying on the couch, taking naps, like really calming, things that are probably very challenging for the people who need it the most.
Totally. And I can relate. I mean, just like I said, for you guys, the rest portion of this year has been probably the biggest thing. Jackie forced me to take days off. I'm such a doer. I schedule everything. And what I learned to do was we really had to switch my thinking into realizing that these wellness practices, taking a bath, is productive. So for me, I was so obsessed with doing things that were productive and felt valuable. And so what I had to do was schedule this wellness stuff on my calendar and to switch my perspective, seeing them as productive. So that's slowing down that, I spent a couple months just doing walks and mellow yoga. And that was really different for me, but really valuable, because for me, my lifestyle is just stressful. As much as I want to convince myself that it's not, it's so much my normal that I don't realize I'm stressed out. So that might be the case for you. And it's just something to keep in mind, that in almost all cases, I have a feeling we could use a little more rest and relaxation and detox baths.
Yeah, taking that extra day off of training. And I think that if we look back again, Danika, at the bank account, it's kind of like looking at this rest and the baths and the time off as deposits. and know that it's temporary. You're going to get back to a point where you don't need so much rest, and that we don't have to make so many deposits in this like kind of slow pace. But if it's challenging for you, it's because you need it. And so I don't think that people equate rest and stress management to balancing hormones enough. And it's really important. There's some other, I should make the point that there's a lot of environmental toxins that we're exposed to that can absolutely affect our hormones. So plastic is a huge one. So if you don't use glassware in your home, as far as just like storing food or, different pots and pans that are just loaded with different toxins, that's a huge one. Like Danika has a beautiful plant behind her. Getting some air purifying plants in your home is another great tip. And then, doing different forms of detox. Danika and I have talked about on our social media platforms a few times, doing infrared sauna as a detox, which is incredible. Yeah, I do too, actually. And then like our makeup products, right? So our cleaning products, our skincare products, our lotions, our makeup, anything like that we're exposing ourselves to on a daily basis. Let's get curious, just as you would with your food labels and what you're putting into your body. It really matters also what you're putting on your skin, and that can disrupt our hormones also. So it's really looking again at everything. So we put so much focus on food, and food does. Probably the quickest and easiest way to balance your hormones is to not eat things that disrupt them. So staying away from things like gluten, like sugar, like processed foods. One of the best things that you can do on a food cellular level to support your hormones. Outside of that, it's sleeping for long periods of time, at least 8 hours. We'll kind of get into what sleep looks like in a few minutes, but managing your stress really well. And then again, slowing down, and that kind of coincides with stress management also. So it's not this one size fits all or just one way that we can manage it. And if this all seems overwhelming because we're listing so many things, pick one thing that you can change. And even if that is, okay, I'm going to eat breakfast every day consistently, that's enough. And making good choices, that's going to help balance your hormones in the right direction, making these good choices. If you're going to decide to leave your phone out of your room and really get these 8 hours of sleep, that's going to help. If you're a mom who's breastfeeding and that's not even an option for you as far as sleep, then we're going to help manage stress in other areas. So we're going to control the things that we can in order to get you to reach this place of, obtaining more balance.
I love that. And so we actually had a couple questions from people wondering where you went to school, what that looks like, how they find a functional nutritionist. So
yeah,
we could speak to that really quickly before we answer some of these other questions.
Yeah, sure. So I wouldn't say I definitely went down like the normal path. I of course not, right? So I actually started off as a teacher. I taught Spanish for 5 years in New York, and so I have a master's in education and a master's in business, both of which I'm using in a really wacky way now, but all kind of came together. And so it was really hard for me to decide, once I decided I wanted to go back to school for holistic nutrition, to kind of which path I wanted to go down. And I have spoken to you about this plenty of times, and I still am discerning potentially getting my doctorate in naturopathic medicine. And so it was one of those things where it was like, do I get another master's, and how much do I really, need for this, and what do I really want to do? And so I started by going to the Natural Healers Institute of Naturopathy to get my certificate as a certified nutrition consultant, and then went through a program called FDN, Functional Diagnostic Nutrition, which enables me to pull labs and do more lab testing, which I love. And then I'm also a member of the Institute of Functional Medicine, which I'm still enrolled in right now. And so I kind of went a few different ways to kind of get me to where to this point. But I think more than anything, Danika, my education comes from my personal experience with health and my journey. And then my clinical experience. I learn so much from my clients. And so it's almost like I can't even put a value on how much I get out of the research that I put in and that to help my clients, what I learned from lab testing, and then my own personal journey. I've gone through adrenal fatigue. I've gone through Lyme's disease, which obviously I still have. And it's, and then just managing stress in general. And it was such a, when all of these things kind of happened to me, I realized that they happened for me, because everything I learned along the way, I was able to really experience on firsthand and give back to my clients. And so at one point, just from getting my certification and learning about, let's say, fatigue or macronutrients or healing your thyroid, it wasn't until I actually had to heal my own thyroid and really experience what fatigue felt like that I was able to relate to my clients and say, like, no, I understand that you cannot get off the couch. I understand that your menstrual cycle is so intense that you are not able to leave the house for a week, or it's affecting your life so badly, or that you're doing everything right and you're not losing weight. It wasn't until I was really experiencing those things firsthand that I was able to help people. So I feel really blessed in that sense, that I'm able to learn so much from my clients. I have people thank me all the time, and I feel so humbled, because I want to say, if you have any idea how much you helped me or how much I've learned from this experience. So yeah, and then just as far as finding a functional nutritionist or a functional medicine practitioner, going to the FDN, Functional Diagnostic Nutrition site, they have like a list of practitioners. The Institute of Functional Medicine will have the same. Another program is the Kalish method, and I think they have a list of practitioners also. But most naturopathic doctors, functional medicine doctors, I think it's like anything, everybody's going to have their own approach, but for the most part, I think you have to do your homework and just making sure that people practice and kind of jive with what you need. And so as you know, I offer free 20-minute consultations, mainly to see what people need and to see if we're the right match. And there are times where we just aren't what people need. And so I wouldn't go based off title or credentials alone as much as I would seeing if a person is willing to look at you as a whole person and really hone into what you need. And if you are looking for something more nutrition specific and not so much lifestyle, potentially going to like a holistic dietitian or something like that. And so I don't think there's again, like this one size fits all as far as approach. I think that everybody has their unique way of practicing, which is really the beauty of this field. But I do think that this field is growing tremendously, and there's a lot of people who offer really incredible ways to help people heal.
Absolutely. And just, Jackie, are you still taking clients? Because Jackie works remotely. She's in New York. I'm in California. So we do things over Skype, over phone calls, that sort of thing. So I don't know if you are taking additional clients, but if you are looking, if you do want to work with Jackie, that's an option too that I would highly recommend. And so yeah, so if they do want to work with you and you are taking clients, what's the best way to contact you?
Yeah, probably through my website, which is jackiemulligan.co, or you can contact me on Instagram also. And yeah, I take clients on just as others finish. I used to have like an onboarding period, but people work with me for various time frames. That is, as long as there's an opening, I'm willing to take people on. I do cap it at a certain level because I really like to just work with a certain amount of people and really give my all to them. And so it might just be dependent on availability, but right now, yeah, I can take on people. And like you said, Danika, it's really amazing, the power of technology, right? It's like a blessing and a curse to have technologies at our fingertips, but in this case, definitely a blessing, because I really work with people all over the world. Right now I have New Zealand and London and Spain and all over the United States, and it's just so cool to be connected with people all over. And so yeah, that's the best way to contact me.
Awesome. So, okay, so moving forward with some of these questions, someone asked, this is sort of, along with the hormone thing. I think the word hormone and thyroid, all those words to me were like, I don't know what that means, but working with you, understanding it better. So someone had asked, do you think it's possible to fix thyroid without medication, with just diet and lifestyle change?
Yes. Yes, because I did it. And yes, because I've seen people do it. There are two resources that I'm going to share with you that are so near and dear to me that I would highly recommend them. So one is a book called The Root Cause, that is all things thyroid, and it kind of like I think breaks down the science for people to kind of really tune into what's going on and even learn about the thyroid in general. There's actually a practice in Carlsbad that is same as me, offers consultations remotely and over Skype. And actually, I worked with them. Their names are Josh and Jeannie Rubin, and they're of East West Healing. So it's eastwesthealing.com. And they specialize in thyroid. And they are incredible. Josh, I think, is originally maybe from Boston, and he's sarcastic and super witty, but he's like this no nonsense, really intelligent a man. And then his wife is Jeannie, and she's a lot softer, but also lovely. I worked with her, and actually, Danika, I introduced the 5 components of healing to you a while ago in our work. So it's compassion, patience, awareness, trust, and consistency. And those are, I actually learned them from Josh and Jeannie, and I still use them in my work with every single client today. And actually, if we just kind of stop for 1 second and just look at what those are, it's almost like what we need in all aspects of our life. So consistency alone, right? Then there's awareness of what you need to be consistent in. Then there's patience as you kind of make these changes. There's compassion for when things don't happen as quickly or as planned. And then there's trust, right? Like blind trust in this process. You're eating clean, you're sleeping, you're managing stress, and things aren't happening as fast as they need to. But you need to trust your body and that it's intelligent enough to heal itself. And so my answer to this is absolutely. But it would be wise to work with somebody who can help. And so yes, I do focus on this also. But if you want to go to the real deal experts, for sure, Josh and Jeannie are the ones to go to at East West Healing. And they work with body temperature and pulse also, which is really interesting. And so yeah, I don't think that the answer is always medication. I do think there's a time and place for it. And I think depending on the severity of your thyroid condition, that there might be a necessity for it, maybe even for just a short period of time. So it's not that I completely think that medication isn't, that there isn't a place for it or that's not necessary. I just think for as quickly as doctors put you and the normal person or the norm to do is to just prescribe medication. I don't always think that's the answer. And so I don't want everybody to just think that they should throw out their thyroid medication, but I do think that it's really important to know that there is natural ways to get around it.
Awesome. I think that's across the board with most issues.
Yeah.
There really are a lot of natural ways that you can try before turning to medication. So
yes.
So now this is something that I had a lot of questions on too, the vegan diet. So
yeah.
I have a lot of friends that are vegan, and I totally respect it for all the different reasons that people do it.
Yeah.
Some friends that thrive on it and feel really great, and I have some friends that lost their hair and got malnourished and whatever. So, you just hear different sides of the coin, and I just was curious, and I know some of the questions were curious about the vegan diet, especially as it pertains to doing it long-term or raising a family on it.
Yeah, and it's such a great question, and it comes up for me all the time, and I've actually worked with a couple of people who they now eat meat, but it was quite a journey from vegan to meat eater, right? I think the most important thing to start off with is that, why are you vegan? So it's, why is a person choosing to be vegan? Is it like an ethical reason? Is it because meat really doesn't make you feel good? Is it, I think it's kind of like getting really clear on the reason why you're not eating meat. Is it that you started or stopped eating meat when you were 10 because you tried it with your friend as an experiment and you just never went back? Let's get curious as to what's happening here. But I think it's really important to note that everybody is different, and there is this word that I mentioned earlier called bioindividuality, where everybody is different. We have to really look at all things together before we make this decision. Just say everybody needs to eat meat, because that's not necessarily true. So it's it's looking at genetics, your health history, your current health, how you're feeling right now, your blood type. I mean, there's a lot of different things that we should look at. So before I kind of answer this question right away and say vegan or not vegan, eat meat or not meat, I think we have to look at those things. I will say that in my practice that I have seen a lot of undernourished people that are vegan, that follow a vegan diet, right? And so that means that when we pulled the micronutrient test, like we did for you, Danika, there was tons of deficiencies, specifically in the B, which B vitamins we get from from meat, but also there was a lot of digestive issues, which is very, very common in people who follow a vegan diet, and also energy. So like a lack of energy, a lack of digestion. And so I think it's really getting clear on like, is there fear around eating meat? If you don't feel good when you eat meat, you know, what's the quality of meat you're eating? Because that's another thing I advocate for. Like, I would rather, you know, if I go to a restaurant and they're, I know for sure that the quality of meat is just not good, I would rather just get a salad with a lot of veggies and some healthy fat and forego the protein. I think that's definitely my approach. I would rather save it for when there's a high quality, you know, meat available. So I think that is definitely worth mentioning. But I would really I would ask people to get curious around like how they feel, if they're open to trying it, and if they have reintroduced it, have they introduced good quality types of meat? Have they started off with maybe poultry and then got into red meat? And is there even a window for potentially even going pescatarian, where you're bringing in some fish and some eggs? So there is a source of protein there. But I will say, even to go back to balancing hormones, I think it's really hard. It's nearly impossible to get the protein that our bodies truly need from a vegan diet.
And then you also said earlier you might touch a little bit on the keto diet. I know we said we didn't like dig super into it, but I also don't want to have people that are waiting to hear about the keto diet.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll go into it. So I feel like ketosis or ketogenic diet.
This is the ketogenic diet. Keto.
Yeah. So the ketogenic diet, I think, is pretty dramatic. And so what I say, and for people who don't know, it's basically a really, really high fat, low carb, practically no carb diet. And so I think it's really dramatic. And I say that if you have a drastic health condition, then you should go drastic with how you kind of heal it. And so I have, maybe something like MS or different autoimmune conditions might want to go toward a ketogenic diet to help heal them on a mitochondria, metabolic cellular level. But I don't think the everyday person who has relatively good health necessarily needs to follow a ketogenic diet. I think it's pretty drastic. I think that it also could be a stressor on the body, very similar to how I touched on intermittent fasting. I think it's a cool experiment. I haven't completely gone into ketosis, but I've definitely tried higher fat, lower carb. And when my stress is not high, it actually helps me a lot. It helps me also when I travel to fight jet lag. And so I think there are really creative ways of bringing in different times throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the year, where you switch your focus to more protein and fat. But I don't think that doing something as dramatic and drastic as ketosis is for everybody. And again, kind of similar to intermittent fasting, I see it affect women's hormones often. And I also see a really strong link to fasting, ketosis, and anxiety. So, I can go a lot deeper science there, but I think that I'm gonna vote that it's not for everybody.
Okay. So let's talk about something that does affect everybody, and that is stress. Managing stress, how you deal with stress. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So I am really great at managing stress because I maybe am still a stressaholic, where I just sort of addicted to stress. Like, I like that things are going on. I'm on to the next thing. I need to be stimulated at all times. I'm a fast learner. And so I used to kind of equate my worth to my productivity. And so when we talk about like our 3 things later, I really made shifts this year to change that thought. But I think women especially get caught up in this, Danika, where it's like, I am important if I blank. And so it's kind of like, you'll see these, I don't know, Facebook statuses aren't as popular anymore, but we used to see like on somebody's status, like, did this all before 8 a.m., like rock star. And it's like, right?
And I've done that like 5
Yeah, me too. And it's kind of like that's great. And it does feel really good to have that productivity in the morning, but like that doesn't change our work. And so I think that's kind of like the first thing we need to look at here is like, why are we so stressed out? And so I think let's just talk about the holidays. Like, it's right here and right now, right? So the holidays are a super stressful time. Like, in addition to everything else that we have going on, we have more food, financial stress, more social obligations, and then we have this like expectation that we should be resting and have downtime and like make the most of every single moment, but like you have 20 times more things to do than you did on a normal basis. So it's just this like chaotic recipe for absolute disaster, which is why a lot of holidays result in disaster. And so I think that, you know, the best strategy to do when you're feeling stressed is to take a time out. And that's probably the hardest thing to do when you feel stressed, because it's almost like, I'll give you this example. Have you ever kind of acted out or gone to a fight and like you've already gone too far? That's like you almost have to finish going too far because you've like passed the point of return. It's kind of like that with I mean, I've never done that.
Yeah, I haven't either. Ask Billy.
But it's kind of like that. It's like we get to this point where we're so stressed out that like physically sitting down or stopping, it feels like it's impossible. And so it's getting back to this bank account where it's like, okay, where do I need to make deposits right now? And what does this look like? And so if you can imagine like looking at your plate, I actually do this in my corporate wellness presentations all the time. I'll have people draw a plate and I say, write what is on your plate. Like, you have a full plate right now, write what is on it. And I have people for 5 or 10 minutes just nonstop writing of like all the things they have to do. And like the first thing that comes to my mind is a mother. Like, think about all the things that moms have to do, working moms, you know, single moms, stay-at-home moms. So it's just a really big job. And their plate is just absolutely full. And going back to our self-care conversation in the beginning, where are they supposed to fit in time for themselves and without feeling this guilt? And I think I'm kind of going to like peek off into another question that came up.
The question, someone was saying, you know, how do I make time for self-care when I feel like all I'm doing is taking care of other people?
Yeah, and it's this oxygen mask thing on the plane. You know, you get on the plane and they say, put your oxygen mask on first before you put it on your kids. And you have to do that. So if you cannot fill your own cup, you have nothing to pour out to other people. And so I think it's more of like this psychological conversation with yourself of like, you know, I've said this to you, Danika, like, you are really important, but you're actually like not that important. Like, you can take a day off. Like, you really are so important, but not as so important that you can take a day off of model meals. Like, you know, the company is going to survive. And if it doesn't, something's really wrong. Yeah. And so, you know, I even say to women who are moms or who have kind of like lost their identity or sense of self, it's kind of like, you know, you need to reconnect with you and, you know, reconnect with your source, God, and say, you know, who am I? What is my purpose? And I think that until we have a time out and this ability to kind of get out of the noise, get out of the world, it's really hard to even tune into what we need. And so it can be meditation. It could be the float tank, right? It could be sitting at a church. It could be yoga class. It can be really whatever feeds people specifically. And it sometimes is that first step of taking that, what feels really selfish, which feels like you don't deserve it, and all of this negative self-talk that comes in, that you really need the most for you to tune in and say like, okay, my kids actually can survive for an hour without me. I really needed that. And then the other thing is like deciding what you can eliminate. Like, I say this to people all the time, no is a complete sentence. You do not have to give a reason why you're saying no to things. Like, clear off your social obligations. I think it's so beautiful to have these huge circles of friends and family, but I think it's even more beautiful to have a small, intimate group that know you really, really well. And it's when we get caught up in all these extra loops that we're just trying to please everybody and we are completely spread thin. So prioritize. There's a really, really great book called First Things First. And actually, Danika, I taught you this too, of like prioritizing your day to what is most important. And often when yeah, exactly, me, right? No, but it's, you know, it's a lot of the reason why prayer is in the first part of my day, because that is, you know, one of the most important things of my day or in my life. And I kind of reached a point this year where I thought, you know, I want to be laser focused on the essentials. And if I'm not doing that every single day, I am just living chaotically. And it really was chaos. And that's kind of what led me into the spiral of stress that got me to the point of mastering self-management stress management and self-management, to the point where I was like, okay, if I don't hit the timeout button, I'm just going to spiral out of control. And so it's, I think, for a lot of women, it's realizing that we will never be everything for everyone, but we can pick a few things and do them really, really well, and a few people, and have really, really strong relationships with them, whether that be personal, family, relations, whatever the case may be. But I wonder, Danika, I'm actually going to flip this on you for a second. If you can say, you did so much with stress management this year, what would you say like your top 2 stress management techniques were that from our work together? Do you remember any?
Well, I think switching the view to realizing that working out too hard could be causing me more stress than and ultimately weight gain and holding on to weight because I'm in stress mode. So I remember thinking that was super valuable. And then in terms of stress, I mean, really for me, scheduling those breaks. For me, when I used to look at my work day and it was just 14 hours long with all work, that like stressed me out so much. So something like that. And really just not losing time like mindlessly on social media or on my phone in bed, that sort of thing. I've been a lot more intentional about my time. And as a result, I have these time blocks where I know I have to get this thing done in this period of time. And I do, and then it's done, rather than me stressing about, where I'm gonna do everything. So I think that was it. What am I? Oh, the detox baths have been really nice. Jackie taught me all about detox baths. And yeah, just like slowing my movement down as well. Taking walks, that's a big thing. My dog like really appreciates all of your work that you've done towards staying. I don't even want to say it too loud because he's gonna get excited and freak out. So W's.
One thing I think that I introduced to you, and I actually I put into practice maybe almost 2 years now, is scheduling time and a half for my activities. And so if it takes about 30 minutes to get ready in the morning, scheduling 45 in your time frame, just for room for error, whether you need a little bit more time to get ready, I don't know, whatever can kind of go wrong. Same thing with like your commute to work, right? If it's a 20-minute drive, let's plan for 30. And maybe you need to get gas on the way. Maybe you need to turn around and get the lunch that you packed that you forgot in your refrigerator. But leaving this like room for error, this room for margin, I think that when we pack our days so tightly, I mean, it just doesn't allow us to have any transition time. And so it's nearly impossible to be fully present on everything we do when we're just kind of going from activity to activity frantically and just like surviving through our day. And so that means, and what that meant for me was that I had to do less. I had to do less in my day because I was trying to squeeze in so many things, and it was just not happening. And so when I started taking even just one thing out and allowing that, our activity to be removed, but that opening up transition time to get me, from point A to point B in my day, it really just helped me fully prepare for whatever I was doing, whether that was 15 extra minutes, preparing for a client and really giving them 100%, which that was, 10 extra minutes in my prayer time or whatever that it kind of equated to, it always transitioned into better for me. And just speaking on walking, I recently didn't drive for about almost 2 months in New York, and just decided that I was going to walk everywhere. And it slowed me down so much, but it was one of the most incredible experiments I've ever done. And so I didn't worry about gas or gas money. I had to like really plan out my day very strategically, from like what I was wearing to bundle up to to all facets. And it just really made me appreciate my body and my time. And it was incredible. And so the more it slowed me down even more than I can imagine. And it was the greatest gift that I could have given myself, or that it could have been given to me, really. So it's really finding ways like in our day to slow down, and I think scheduling time and a half is a great way to do that.
Absolutely. And then to that note, a lot of us hit these afternoon slumps, and we got a question about what are some tips for afternoon energy boosts that also won't keep you up late? So AKA something other than drinking coffee at 3 p.m. or sugar or something.
Yeah. So I'll mention your favorite one first, which is contrast showers.
I still haven't done them. There's one thing I refuse, and it's two things: cryotherapy and contrast showers. I don't like being at like extreme temperatures.
Yeah, so the contrast showers really kind of liven up your lymphatic system, and so it's basically just going between really, really cold water and then hot water 3 different times for about 30 seconds each. I often do this in the afternoon if I do have a little bit of an energy slump. Actually, right before our call, as I was getting ready, I just had a quick contrast shower to bring myself to life, and it works. It really, really does work. So that's one thing that you can do, and a lot of people do it. It only takes 3 to 5 minutes, and you just go back and forth, like I said, for 20 to 30 seconds each for hot and cold. So that's a great one. And in the morning, it doesn't have to be an afternoon thing. It could be something done in the morning too, if you need to kind of like wake up for the gym or whatever the case may be. Walking outside in nature is a huge one. So kind of just getting outside and away from technology. Danika spoke to this earlier, but working in work blocks, which kind of channels our ultradian rhythm. So we have a circadian rhythm, which is our 24-hour rhythm, and then our ultradian rhythm, which is about every 120 minutes, our body resets. And so that's kind of the science behind 90 minutes of work and 30 minutes of rest. And step away from technology, allow yourself a break. And so I think there's this afternoon slump because we've been glued to computer or technology for 6 to 8 hours with almost little to no breaks. I work with some CEOs and executives where I'll ask them what their workday looks like, and I'll kind of pause them and say, have you drank water? Do you get up? Do you talk to your employees? Do you use the bathroom? And honestly, so people are so engaged in their work that the answer really is no. And so I can't imagine that they feel energetic. And I understand that there's 5 espressos going down at 3 or 4 o'clock. So definitely stepping away and taking breaks, getting outside in nature. The contrast showers. Let's see and probably the most important is balancing your blood sugar. So if you're really feeling this slump and like you're hydrated, you've taken a break, you've gotten outside, you've walked around a little bit, you don't have the ability to take a shower, it's probably that you're hungry and that your lunch either wasn't enough or wasn't balanced, or you have a really large output and your body just needs more fuel. So any of those will definitely help and won't keep you awake.
Awesome. I find that
won't keep you awake at night. They will definitely keep you awake in the afternoon.
I find that eating half of an avocado almost always gets me where I need to be. So I usually make sure that's part of my lunch. That the healthy fats for me really help me to thrive and feel consistent energy. And truthfully, I hate to admit it, but I'm on caffeine-free December, and it is almost the end of December. And I have to admit that I have a lot more energy and a lot more consistency in my energy without caffeine. Am I gonna go back and have my matcha in the morning? Probably, because I miss it so much. But I'll probably not have one that's this size. I'll probably have one that's this size.
A little smaller, yeah.
So
no, but I think that's great, and I really think that again, this is something that people should experiment with. But typically, if you are having this slump and it's consistent, you probably aren't eating enough with your lunch. And my suggestion would be adding more protein and more fat to your lunch because your body's just requiring more fuel.
Cool, I'm into that. So that is the end of our questions. Thank you guys for sitting in on that. I hope you guys heard a lot of the things that you were looking to hear. We are always available to answer questions on Instagram, and we really want to be doing this more regularly. So if we didn't answer your question this time, we'll definitely get to it next time. So we'll try to. So the thing we wanted to end with was, it's coming to the end of the year. We're setting New Year's resolutions. We're looking back and really taking account of what worked this year and what didn't. And so Jackie and I both wanted to share with you the 3 things in our own wellness routines that really helped us this year. So my number 1 was getting emotions out healthily to avoid binge eating, because I've always struggled with food, and whenever I feel uncomfortable or bored or tired, I turn to food to numb out. What I found, especially since I started dating my boyfriend, and I feel very grateful to say that we have a really communicative, vulnerable, real relationship, he's given me the space to really get my feelings out. So whether I'm feeling bored or sad or whatever it is, I now communicate that. I get those feelings up and out of my body instead of needing to push those feelings down with food. So I've really found that doing that is super helpful for me, and it's made a really big difference.
Wow, that's such beautiful awareness. I love that.
Thank you. Number 2 is scheduling self-care. So we touched on this before, but it's talking about work breaks, sleep, prioritizing all these things that are crucial to your function. For me, though, I used to see it as like, oh, I can't meditate for 20 minutes. I can't waste 20 minutes. But when I meditate for 20 minutes, in an hour, I get done what may take me 3 hours without having that clear focus or that self-care that I put into play. So scheduling self-care and making it an absolute priority, getting up early to do that has been huge. And then number 3 is setting some boundaries around social media. So turning off, this is little things, social media is a big part of my job. I love it. I love sharing. I love engaging with people. It's a really wonderful tool, and I feel so grateful for the community that I've connected with as a result of it. But I also have to set limits because I get messages all day, and that's amazing, and I'm so stoked on it. But at the same time, if I was sitting there answering messages all day, that would be I would not be practicing what I preach. So for me, it's little things. It's not checking social media, as I said, in the morning until, I usually end up checking it for the first time. I'll post stories occasionally, but I'm not actually checking it or engaging with it. I'm really just doing that sort of thing to share wellness tips that I hope will help other people. But so that I turn off all my notifications. Almost all my notifications actually on my phone are off. So I can be more mindful about when I want to check something and when I don't want to know about it. And then really not bringing the phone in the bedroom. To be honest, when I allow my phone in the bedroom, I probably lose almost an hour a day going through my phone, when I wake up in the morning for 30 minutes or before bed for 30 minutes, if not more. And so not having my phone in the bedroom, I've been able to replace that time with either connecting with my partner, reading a book. Sometimes we do watch a show, and yes, that screen's in the bedroom, but I also am a really big advocate for the fact that it is okay to turn off your brain. It is okay to watch trashy television or read a stupid magazine, whatever. It's okay to turn your brain off. But just be mindful about how you're doing that, and really embrace the fact that you're doing it, and understand that it's acceptable. So those are the 3 things that have really helped me. Jackie?
Love them. All such good ones. So I think the biggest change that I made, and the most fruitful of 2017 for me, was the power of silence. I shared this with you just recently, and I also shared it on Instagram, but every Thursday I spend a couple of hours in silence, full silence and prayer, and silence has been so fruitful, and it was uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable. It's, it's sitting with yourself, it's sitting with God, it's sitting in the discomfort of uncertainty, and really just opening up space to hear what I need to. And okay, I'm sorry.
I love that you're talking about silence, and this is
I'm not totally getting
like silence.
But this is what happens. But I really found that silence grounded me, and I was able to make such incredible changes that truly were, without question, the best choices that I needed to make very confidently. That came to me in silence. And it wasn't until I really came out of the world and really made time to listen consistently. So yes, once a week for a large chunk of time, but every single morning for at least an hour, where I was in full silence and prayer. And that really just helps me to tune in to myself, to tune into God, and to help me be better for other people. And so that also in turn translated into surrender, and kind of made me realize that I'm actually not in control of all the things that I thought I was in control of, and also leaning into this uncertainty of like, it's okay to not have a plan. It's okay that the plan is that there's no plan. It's okay that I'm not really sure where this practice is taking me and this new business adventure is taking me, and that it's not so secure all the time, and that it's really exciting, and that there's a lot of avenues opening up, and it's just this blind trust. And so the silence kind of supported my faith even more. And so the power of silence, I can't even express how much it changed my life, but how it's just such a part of me that the peace and the grace that have poured out because of it is something that I think is it's so powerful that I almost don't know if I couldn't have it now. It's that feeling of when you're eating well, it's like, what it feels like, and now you can't unknow it. And so you just want to do that much more.
Yeah.
So that's definitely the first one. The second is less is more. I learned that I was such a more person my whole life, you know, bigger, better, more, do. And I had to pull the throttle back. And so it was do less things better. And so focus on a few things that I felt were really essential to my day, to my work, to the people in my life, and really cultivate those relationships and those goals and priority, and not try to do everything for everybody. That was really hard for me. It's something that I still do work on a daily basis because I am by nature a helper and a pleaser. And so that is something that is challenging, but taking time for self-care to fill up my cup and to do less and be okay with that, and not equating how much I do, what my productivity level is to my worth. And it's a lot easier said than done, but definitely something that that significantly changed my life this year specifically. And the last one is play. And I'm serious. I'm a really serious person, and I like to go deep, and I like to have really hard conversations. But I didn't take a lot of time to play, and I recently realized that, and I did make time to play this year. And I think especially in healing my Lyme's disease, taking some time off of work and just playing was instrumental in my healing. And so I actually, even yesterday, I went to this like trampoline sky zone place with my niece, and I was just like jumping on this trampoline and having so much fun and trying not to break my neck with attempting, you know, flips. But it was just, I had a moment of this deep joy and just feeling really childlike. And I think adults forget to play, and we get so caught up in the day to day and the daily grind and our goals and, you know, productivity and all of these things that we forget to play. And so there's a lot, I've always said this, but there's a lot to be learned from children. They're super present, they play, they have fun. And I think that it's something that that really helped change the tone of my year specifically. And so so play is my third one.
I love that. And I love all of this. Thank you so much, Jackie. I think this is like an abundance of information here, and I'm sure this is only beginning. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I will make sure that in the notes below you guys have links to all of our profiles. But Jackie, real quick, if you just want to tell them where they can find you. You mentioned your website, but what's your Instagram handle?
Yeah, sure. So it's Jackie_Mulligan. And then my website is jackiemulligan.co.
Awesome. And then I'm Danika Brysha. My website is danikabrysha.com, and my Instagram is @DanikaBrysha, DANIKABRYSHA. So we hope we will be seeing you guys more. We'd love to hear from you in the comments what other questions you'd like us to answer, and we'll definitely pay attention to those. And if this was great for you, then we'll do more of them. It was great for us, so we'll probably do more.
Yeah, it was great for us. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, and happy New Year if you're watching this going into 2018, but just in general, sending you guys so much love and especially self-love. Make time to really take care of yourself, and thank you for making the time to share this with us. Bye.